So are you gonna? Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started as close to on time as possible. We do have a rules meeting that's coming up at 8:30, so we'd like to get started. Before we begin, Representative Williams, will you give us a blessing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, thank you again for another wonderful day. Thank you for the blessings and opportunities you have bestowed upon each and every one of us. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and work for the citizens of the state of Georgia. Please bless our men and women in harm's way, our law enforcement officers, and the people in the Ukraine. Dear Lord, please have mercy on their souls and heal this world. In thy name we pray, amen.
Thank you. All right, first up, Representative Mathis, can you come up, please? And sure, please do. Okay. I'm ready. If you announce your bill and your LC number.
Yes, ma'am. Let's see, let me get my other glasses out. Can't see. Let's see here. It's LC 471480.
Yes.
And it's House Bill 1329. Just quickly, what we're trying to do is basically adjust the cost for the salaries for coroners. It hadn't been done, and I'm on, Mr. Bearden is going to explain that a little bit more, but what we're trying to do is to get them upgraded, get them on a scale, kind of like the sheriffs and all the other constitutional officers. The coroner is an elected official of each county in Georgia that has the coroner system, and there's 155 counties that right now do that, or 154. I'm not sure what Clayton does. But anyway, we would love for y'all to just listen to Mr. Ted just a minute, and we'll be through quickly. We know y'all got rules.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Ted Bearden. I am the coroner in Dawson County, and I'm also here representing the Georgia Coroners Association. I thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak to you today. I'll try to be as brief as I can. Number one, the bill, it does have bipartisan support. If you will look at the signers on the bill, in a handout, I've given you a comparison chart. It shows the minimum starting salaries for every elected official in our counties. And if you'll notice, what we're asking for is only a fraction of the amounts paid to the others. The coroner's salaries have not been addressed in 32 years. A lot has changed in 32 years. And these minimum salaries, we have coroners from the North Carolina border to the coast that are making $4,000 a year to service the coroners in their counties. And it's just time to correct that. The ACCG in his address earlier this week, he said the coroners in these counties have a choice. They can either take a minimum salary or the case fees. And that's what they've been telling the counties all these years, but that is absolutely inaccurate. I've got the code section right here. It's very clear.
it says they will be paid a minimum salary plus the case fees. The ACCG doesn't even understand what the code is and how these guys are paid. Deputy coroners, we need to address the deputy coroners, because in these smaller counties, or in a lot of counties where deputy coroners are only paid case fees, they'll take weekend call starting at 5 o'clock on Friday, ending at 8 o'clock on Monday morning. And by the grace of God, if that phone don't ring, they get paid nothing. And it's just time to stop asking people to dedicate their time to these counties for no compensation whatsoever. And so we just feel like that we need to address this, to bring it up. The caseloads in all of our counties, especially since COVID, have just gone astronomically high. We're all working harder. The ACCG makes it a point all the time to say we're not full-time employees, that we're only on call. But the thing is, when that call comes in, if we go out on a homicide or a suicide, sometimes we spend 4 to 6 hours on that scene. We come back, we do our paperwork, we contact the ME's office, we wait on them to call us back, and then we transfer that body. And in my case, I'm close, but it takes 3 hours for me to go to GBI and back. And these counties that are farther away, these coroners and deputy coroners are spending hours and hours and hours on just a single case. And then you deal with open records with the families, you deal with open records with insurance companies, with attorneys, and if it's a criminal charge that resulted from that death, we're going to get subpoenaed and we're going to have to go to court. And we need good men and women in this state to fulfill that position. And the GBI, they do a great job, but they are so backlogged. Right now, in this session, I know that the legislature is giving the GBI ME's office millions of dollars just to try to help correct the backlog. And there is so many cases going into that office that I held a body 3 days this week before they even had table space. I couldn't even take it down there. And they put out an operations bulletin. This is their latest one. There are cases now with people dying that are only 45 years old that they don't want called in if they meet this criteria. Well, if it's not going to be called into the ME's office, then the discretion of what goes on that death certificate lies solely with that coroner or deputy coroner. And that's a big responsibility. Doing your paperwork, your death certificates in a timely manner means the families get to go to probate, means the families can file their insurances and do all the things that comes with having to deal with the death of somebody that you love. We need people in these positions that treat not only the deceased with some dignity and some respect, but also the families. It's our job to deal with the families. We're mandated by law to serve on certain committees in our counties, and those are time consuming. Child fatality review, violent death investigations, all of those, we have to take them a step farther. Again, I want to reiterate that what we are asking for is only a small fraction of what all the other elected officials are paid. And we're not trying to bring this office into this decade. We're trying to bring this office into this century, because it was last century when this was addressed the last time, 32 years ago. Now, I want to say this, and I'll close with this. It is our understanding, and we had no knowledge of this until earlier this week, that there is a law that's already been passed. It's going to go into effect in 2023, where every coroner in this state is going to have $5,000 added to their salaries. If that is true, and if that is the case, and if we do know that that is going to happen for a fact, I have no problem, and I've talked to the others in the association, we have no problem by reducing these minimums that we're asking for by $5,000 if the other law is going to make up the difference. Because that $5,000, that's for the coroners. That still doesn't address the deputy coroners. And the reason they do this job is because they love it. We are losing. I've been running the coroner's office in my county for 31 years, and I'm on my way out. We have a coroner in the state of Georgia, been the coroner 41 years. Caseload last year was 500 death investigations. He just resigned. He said, I can't fight by commission anymore. I'm tired. I'm done. And he resigned after 41 years. That's a wealth of knowledge that county is going to lose right there. And I don't know who you're going to find to replace these when the salary structure is what it is. This millennial generation that's coming along, you describe everything that you do. You describe to them what their duties and responsibilities are, and you tell them we're going to pay you $4,000 a year. They're going to walk. I mean, you're just not going to find it. So with that, I'll close, but I would be glad to entertain any questions.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple questions. Representative Chairman Collins.
I'm going to be brief, but my friend, my colleague, thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for carrying that this badge for us and working hard. Coroners work hand in hand with public safety. Nobody appreciates the value of a coroner until you get a call in the middle of the night, until your mama passes away suddenly on the kitchen floor. I mean, there are so many situations to where nobody thinks about the coroner until you need a coroner. And my colleague is exactly right. Finding quality people to fill these positions is very, very difficult. It is not a full-time job. It's a full-time position. It's a full-time position because it doesn't stop. It's 24/7, 365. And, you need to have a person with a certain skill set, not only to deal with the issues that the coroner faces on traumatic scenes, but also have some type of bedside manner to where you have to talk to these families during difficult times. And I'll just say, this is long past due. And back to what you were saying about the $5,000, and I've said this all along, there's a lot of ifs, and ifs and buts were candy and nuts. We'd all have a Merry Christmas, So I'm going to say this, that we've got to get behind this and do something, because it's going to affect everybody eventually.
Thank you. Representative Burnell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the job that you've done for those over 30 years. I just want to ask one question. What are you all doing to, I know pay is very important, but also to encourage young people to go into your profession?
Well, I honestly don't know what we're doing at the moment to encourage young people to go into this position. My son is my deputy coroner, but let me say this, the county that I represent, they understand it. I went to my county commission. I invited them to come and go with me, and some of them actually took me up on that. I took one to an inquest, and they came to me after the inquest, and they said, we had no idea that you were responsible for all of this. And so when I went to them a few years ago with a budget request, they honored it. And this law, if this is passed and becomes law, it does not affect me at all, because I promise you that my salary is more than what's written into this law. So I don't have a dog in this fight. I've got two sons. They both work for me. One wants absolutely nothing to do with the coroner's office, but one is enamored by it. He loves it, and he does a great job. And my county's addressed the deputy coroners. They're on salary the same as I am. They don't get benefits. I get benefits. They don't, but at least they're compensated for their time. And it's just, so there are young people out there that are interested in carrying the torch when us old people are gone. And thank God for it. But whether it's a young person or a middle-aged person with some good quality years left in his life, it's the quality of people that need to be doing this job that is so important. And it's not just law enforcement that we work with, it's district attorneys, it is GBI, it is, I mean, the list is just endless. It is a never ending job. And but I think if we could correct the pay scale, I think it would be easier for a younger person to become interested and want to do it. But even the minimum salaries, especially for the smaller counties, they're still going to be bivocational. $17,000 a year is not going to support a family. And one of the things that the ACCG continues to say is, oh, they get the COLAs, they get the COLAs. These coroners that are working under the mandated minimum salary of $3,600 a year, that COLA is $72 a year. What can you buy with $72 a year raise? And it's just 32 years is long enough to wait.
Thank you for your service.
Representative Maynard?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to go on the record and say that I support the bill. I spoke to literally several coroners from different counties that emailed me, so I took the time to reach out to them.
Thank you.
And also, clarified a lot of things with Stuart because I didn't understand exactly what the emails were saying at first. But once I understood what was going on, I feel just like Chairman Collins. I don't know how you guys were doing what you were doing for all this time with basically no pay. So I appreciate your service and I support the bill.
Thank you.
We do it because we love our communities.
Representative Singh?
Thank you for coming again. I appreciate your testimony today and prior in subcommittee. I have no dispute with you on coroners' pays being lacking. I'm blessed in our community. We have great coroners, and like my colleague said, they are part of our public safety network. I've also been part of a sheriff's department in a rural community that's paid their deputies $11 an hour, not because they individually aren't valued, but because there's budgetary constraints that this committee has seen with these smaller counties. And I think this is part of that issue is at what point is a community too small to carry out what is basic and essential services? And part of that, I think, is paying their coroners a fair share. I am uncomfortable, however, at being here and deciding for a statewide network, not knowing the budgetary constraints that there are with those counties and deciding that we're going to place this burden on them. I would be a lot more comfortable. I know that this committee has looked at with Madam Chair's the possibility of a study committee, but I believe the full committee would be doing it and looking at this as part of that study on counties in Georgia and what are the essential services that they should be providing and what aren't they providing. With that, I would either make a motion to table or to suspend the bill for the time being.
Thank you. One of the things that has brought this to light was the fact that we've just put $5,000 for the coroners in the budget, and the counties will have to accumulate and use those dollars. This is something that does need to be reviewed, and I do foresee discussing this out of session in a special committee in our off session. So at this time, we will take a vote on any of those. And the motion was to table. Do I have a second? We have a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. I appreciate that. We're going to hold this over. So we appreciate all that you've done. And this will be an item that is taken up again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up will be Chairman Watson with House Bill 1180.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a new sub. Does everybody have working on
Yeah,
LC
would you identify the LC number, please?
432383S? This is HB 1180. This is dealing with the regional commissions. We had this bill.
Yeah, we have a new sub. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't give that everyone.
Okay.
432383S.
Right. Okay, I think we have it now.
Okay. So this is dealing with the regional commissions. We had this same bill, I believe in 2019. pre-COVID. Been a few just minor changes made, which brought us the sub from that bill in 2019. And so if you're not familiar, the regional commissions are all over the state. They have very large boards. Some have up to 50 members on the boards representing that entire region. And they do a lot of great things within their region, but those are huge boards. And so basically, this was some of the conversation that we had through the Rural Development Council to try to reduce some of the numbers on the boards. The problem with that is they are big regions and everybody wanted to be represented and have a say. So we've had trouble, but we also realize that there are some that do not get appointed or reappointed. And a lot of those revolve around the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the speaker's appointments. And so we're removing all of those from each of the regional commissions, which reduces it basically by 5 members, I believe, for most of them. And then still allowing the representation from all of the folks within the region, but then creating an executive council that actually handles the day-to-day and works with the executive director. That's more of a smaller group that does the details of what they're doing and manages that then reports back to the bigger council that at times, may or may not all be there in full force. But just trying to dial them in a little bit more and have a little more organization there to determine what their workload and budgetary things need to be and should be going forward. But then also requiring them, and of course, they're already doing a lot of this. I think they already have a form of an executive council. We're just trying to clarify it and put it in statute here. But then also require them to do an annual report to the General Assembly. They already submit a report to DCA with some of their meeting minutes and newsletters and some of the stuff that they're doing. But I think we want some more detailed information as far as, say for transit, if they're doing transit in their region, we want to know the details of that. How many people are we picking up? How many people are we dropping off? And then report back to the State Planning and Community Affairs Committee and the SLOGO Committee in the Senate. Just so we can get a better handle of what they're doing all across the state and what's working well in some. And there's a lot of redundancy in what they do. And some of them are really great at some things and not so great at other things. And we just want to make sure that we're using them to the fullest. A lot of them are federally funded, so it doesn't cost the state a whole lot, which means we want to take full advantage of what they do. And so that's basically all the bill is doing, and just would appreciate your support.
Okay, there was a change. Do you want to identify that
Yes.
specific change?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So if you'll see on lines 84 and 85, as far as the reporting goes, the change is that we have some, the original version had a calendar year, but we've also added the prior fiscal year. So some basically operate on the fiscal year, not the calendar year. So we made that adjustment to allow them that time after their fiscal year to close to put that information that they're already collecting and submitting either to DCA or to the feds and getting all of that to us in that on that timeline.
Okay, and we do have a question for you, Representative Sanders.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I agree with you that our regional commissions are important, and they also can go without a clear understanding sometimes of what they do, and it is vital that we get accurate information and the public well aware of their important nature. Is there a regional commission association, and do they have a position on this?
They do. Terry Matthews is here, and Matthews Maxwell. if he
Would
wants
you like to speak? Are you in agreement with it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we were looking for.
Chairman's done great work with us.
Thank you. Yes.
With that, I'd like to make a motion to do pass the committee substitute as presented.
We have a second? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Those online, if you would unmic and identify your vote.
Mary Frances Williams, yes.
Micah Gravely, yes.
Representative Williams? Okay, all right, the motion,
Representative Shannon, yes.
thank you,
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Appreciate it.
thank you. All right. Okay, let's see, next up, we will have Representative Sains, if you'll go forward. House Bill 1467, and if you'll read your LC number.
Sure. Thank you. There is a new committee substitute that should be before you, and that LC number is 471760S. I know that our time is short and there's still significant legislation that is to be heard. So what I'll do, instead of going over the lengthy bill, is detailing for the committee the changes since the last subcommittee. I've spoken in more with more detail with the Department of Administrative Services. They're supportive of the measures and the goals. However, I would agree with them. This is a lengthy bill to implement. The goal here is not to lower what the taxpayers are expecting from their procurement process, but to raise, to keep the standard, but to increase and be proactive in getting a diverse field of businesses, which have been shown to not only lower costs, but increase efficiencies in other ways. So one thing we've done, just because the time is short and seeing that there might be details like the business certification program, that they already have something like it, we don't want to create a duplication, is learned one trick from sitting in a judiciary committee, which was changing shalls to mays. So what we did is go through, and anything that was required by the department for the time being changes it to basically may. A good show of that is line 110. The department shall have the power but not the obligation. So before that, it said this department shall. The significance of this is that we are looking at a template for implementing this kind of contracting model and giving it to the department that's backed by what the legislature would like, but not subjecting the department to possibly implementing portions of this bill that may be in conflict, and giving them time. They noted that they're moving to a enterprise system that will allow them to get more data on minority contracting. So that's why we modified, and instead of the disparity study, let's give them time to look at the data that they can get before we spend multiple millions of dollars on that external study that takes a lot of time to do. So it still has the intent of the law. I will also note that we modified ownership of businesses in that specific group. And again, that's minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, rural businesses, from requiring them to be 70% to moving them to the federal standard of 50%. And that's basically the provisions of the change of the bill.
Thank you. We have some discussion. Representative Bernal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So by changing, and thank you for bringing this bill. I know that it was Representative Bruce's bill, and there were several people that came to speak about on this particular bill. But by making that particular change, does that mean now that those businesses that are minority-owned, women-owned, or veteran-owned, and rural businesses, that they're no more closer than they were before?
No, I would add a clarifying statement to two notes that you mentioned. One, Representative Bruce did have a bill very similar to it, and it was the model that we utilized because it was very detailed and they did great work. And he had a lot of committee, but it is distinct in a separate bill, specifically when we added the separate provisions of veterans, rural ownership, and the modifications to the level of ownership to the second degree of no more closer. What I'd say is what we're doing as a legislature is allowing those who have expertise in how to implement this. The Department of Administrative Services over the last 2 years has done significant inroads on their business certification process. So what I don't want to do is harm the current work that they're doing with a well-intended bill of allowing our version of this. What I think everyone would be in agreement of is we all want to see a increase in the supply of the classified group. We're all better served by having more of those subcontractors and contractors. So this gives them the flexibility and intent to have what the legislature sees as appropriate, but also the flexibility to modify to what is more practical in terms of implementing the bill.
Okay, but one more question. So my question again is, though, it's not actually going to increase the use of minority-owned, women-owned, or veteran-owned, or rural-owned businesses. It's now like more or less like a suggestion.
We can't predict what happens down the road, but I'm confident that this would help the department guide itself in terms of a contracted program, which will increase those who are contracted with the state.
Thank you.
Williams, Representative Williams, you have a question?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Representative, for this, Mr. Chairman. And Stuart, Mike can address this. Victor Anderson and I were discussing, we feel like, isn't the federal guidelines at least 51% rather than 50%?
Okay. The chair acknowledges that. That's our understanding also. So at this time, I will, if there's any other discussion, but I would accept a motion right now for the bill, and then we can look to amendment.
Make the motion that we approve the bill.
Okay, is there a second? Do we have a second? We have a second. Okay, we'll have further discussion. At this time, I think Representative Shannon is on Zoom and she'd like to speak. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to say this before the motion was made. This is such a huge bill, especially to do within a couple of minutes. I've got a similar concern to what Representative Burnell talked about, which is just that including rural businesses and veteran businesses, absolutely nothing against rural or veteran businesses, but I mean, those are different categories that are not, those are choices to be a veteran. It's a choice to have a rural business. The things that we're trying to correct in this by increasing minority-owned business and businesses owned by women, those are things that you're born a race. You're born, these are things that you can't control. And so I just wonder, I feel like that adding rural and veterans may dilute what is a real goal of the bill that Representative Roger Bruce originally sponsored this bill for, which was to increase racial diversity with who the state contracts get awarded to. So that's my concern with the bill. And I was wondering, are veterans asking for this? Because I have spoken with some veterans who feel like they should not be included in this. Because of that.
I'm sure the lady has spoken to some. I will share. I've heard just the opposite. I have some veterans that actually appreciated being included in it. But would you like to speak?
Just very quick to the comments of concern. I think it's notable that our colleague made the distinction of what's chosen and what individuals are born with. What I would say is I can't speak to Representative Bruce's intention to his bill. The reason I sponsored this legislation was because, and the Representative Bruce's bill was a great model, was to look at areas in the state that taxpayers could be better served where they are currently underutilized subcontractors and contractors. And I do think that it's well fitting to add veterans and rural businesses, because we do know on a national and state level that those entrepreneurs in those categories have a harder time than average, and an increase in closure in the first 5-year period.
So just a follow-up question, if I may, when you say rural business, are you talking about where the business is headquartered? And if it moves, does it lose the qualification of being a rural business? Talk more about how you allow business to qualify as rural.
I think that's a great question. What we utilize is the Department of Economic Development model of Tier 1 and Tier 2 communities. And it actually specifically references that code section. So the way that we have implemented for over, I believe well over a decade in those Tier 1, Tier 2 communities, which give those businesses in that selected area increased assistance from the state in terms of negotiable benefits that they can utilize when looking at growing businesses, is the same definition that we utilize in defining that business here. And I believe that in terms of dequalifying a business, there is a provision in the bill that speaks to declassifying, decertifying a business. We leave that up to the department, I believe, to dictate how that specifically happens.
At this time, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the 50% to 51% on line 46 and on line 93.
We have a motion and we have a second. And there's another section also. What section was that? Okay, thank you. We have those. Representative Bernal, do you
Yeah.
have a question?
No, he was saying 102, and I was gonna say that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye. Those online, if you would identify.
Williams,
Shannon,
aye.
yes.
Yes.
Shannon, I.
All right. All right. Okay, the amendment has passed. Thank you. Okay, now we can go forward to the full motion as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, all those opposed? Online?
Shannon, no.
Williams, no.
Roberts, have you voted? Representative Maynor, have you voted?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you today House Bill 1103.
I believe she said aye initially, but
Okay.
that might have been to the amendment. I vote yay.
The motion carries. Thank you. All right. Okay. All right, next up will be Representative Brody. Who did?
So it was 3-4 without your.
Okay. Please identify your bill and the LC number.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm working off LC 280514S. And this is a committee, the newest committee substitute to HB 1373. I know we have vetted this bill very well, and I appreciate the members' input. I've spoke to several members since the last committee hearing on Wednesday, and I'm just going to go quickly through the new changes that were made of the revisions on line 13. After having a great conversation with Representative Anderson, we added owns and operated. What that would do is make sure that if we do have a youth lead that's participating at a church or private property, that church or private property would not have to adhere to the language or potentially become liable. So that was very important. And so we made sure we got that language in the legislation. Also, if we go to line 19, or actually line 18, that particular section add in, and it's a trigger for when the cold tub would be utilized. We utilize when the temperature reaches 93 degrees Fahrenheit during the months of April and September, which are some of the hottest months of the year, that the cold tub would have to be sanitized prior to each athletic game, practice, or training at the park facility. However, if we're outside of the months of April or September, or it's not 93 degrees, sanitation would not be triggered by this particular code section. Also, we go to subsection C. This is the trigger for when ice has to be used. Basically, ice will have to be used under the same circumstances if we're participating in games, matches, or practices during the month of April through September, and at any time that the temperature reaches 93 degrees. So that would trigger the ice subsection. One of the reasons why we wanted to use 93 degrees, when I was looking through other cases in Johnny Talbot III's case, it was 93 degrees outside when he collapsed from heat stroke. Also, it was a football player last year practicing in Macon, Georgia, that passed out on the practice field and ultimately died. It was 95 degrees. In the case of the young high school student that was playing or practicing for her basketball team in Clayton County, it was about 96 degrees on that particular day. So we feel like 93 degrees would be a good starting point. And so pretty much, Madam Chair, all the other language is the same. I think this legislation now is narrowly focused, and it's going to concentrate when the cold tub needs to be used at the time of the year in the state of Georgia. It's the hottest, and we have practices going on in youth sports. And also when the cold tub or ice tub has to be sanitized, and what ice has to be available as well. I really like that we added ice to the legislation. So this is the bill, and this is the revised version.
Okay, does anyone have a question? Yes, Representative Gullett?
Hey, I just want to thank you for working through this. I know it's been a labor of love, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I do have just a question, just came to me. It's not going to affect my vote on the bill. I'm just curious. Swimming. So if you're at a swimming pool, like I go to the YMCA near my house, would they be required now to have a tub, even though there's a swimming pool there?
No.
Okay.
Because that's a wading pool, so they'll be completely fine. That
Okay.
will
There's an
actually,
exclusion for that?
no, it's not. But if you want to bring that friendly amendment, we
I
can
don't know
put
if I
that
would
in.
really do it at the time because but I was just thinking, man, you're a swimming pool,
Yeah.
don't think you're going to overheat in a swimming pool. If it's
Yeah.
owned by the county, I know number there, but I feel like they would have to have one with the law, even though you kind of don't need one.
Yeah.
So, we'll figure that out later, I guess, but something to think about
Yeah.
somewhere down the line.
Yeah, but I would be open to a friendly amendment to exclude that if you do have a pool or a wading pool.
I'll let the members, you guys want to do that, or you want to figure this out? and
Let's
send
see
it
if there's
aside,
any other, if there's any
Yeah.
other discussion. We do have online Representative Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the bill to just change the name of the bill to the Johnny Talbot III Heat Stroke Youth Protection Act.
All right, we will see if there's any further discussion, but first we will have to have a motion on the bill. So, okay, do we have a second? Any further discussion? Now would be the time for the amendment. And we actually have two that have discussed amendments, and if you're going to make them, you might want to do it now. So please go again and say what you would like your amendment to be. Shannon?
I'd like to amend the bill to change the name of it to the Johnny Talbot III Heat Stroke Youth Protection Act.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor will say aye. Online, those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries. Now we have a second amendment. Okay. Representative Gullett, if you will,
No.
you're good? Okay, that will be the only amendment. Are you in favor of this amendment, sir?
Yes.
Okay, we have your motion. We had the amendment. Now let's vote on the entire bill. All those in favor say aye. Online?
Aye.
Robert, aye.
Okay, your bill carries and congratulations, you're on to rules.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. Yes, and the mother's here today. Miss Wright is here.
Thank you for being with us, and we feel your sorrow, and I hope this gives you a little, just a touch. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, her attorney's here as well.
Thank you. Thank you for being with her and the support you've given her and the family. We are adjourned.